There's been a lot of, dads rocking up at 11 o'clock at night who have just, they've been at the doctor that day with their child and been told, you need to go to hospital, your child's got cancer, and, within hours your world's changed. Look, everyone's got their own charities, but I just am passionate about what they do and what they stand for and the way they do it. I am a McDonald's licensee who is a charity partner of Ronald McDonald House charities, and I've been around that charity since I was a teenager. I do volunteer work for the charity over the years and became a board member about 7 years ago, and became deputy chairman and then chairman of the Ronald McDonald House charities. My first interaction with the house was my mother used to be the marketing manager for McDonald's back in the 1980s when I was, I must have been, I'm thinking 11 years old maybe. And my mum said, we're going to spend a weekend, we're going to furnish this house that we've just got. So I went along as an 11-year-old and built all the flat pack, IKEA furniture and bibs and bobs, and Mum was obviously a part of the charity, and we did a few little days here and there at the house to help out. So accommodation for families to be close to their sick child is number one. The learning program's probably the second biggest thing we do that no one really knows about, which is quite difficult mentally for children, even after a battle that they've been through, to go back to school. So we have a learning program so that while they're getting treatment, we have tutors go in and tutor them and teach them the year they should be in so they can go back to school where they should be, so they can get back into their lives. We have family rooms in the hospitals where families can get respite on the wards, actually in the hospitals. Coffee, tea, some have, a little room for the parents to have a sleep or, do some laundry or something, just a bit of normality. One of the big challenges for me was making sure my daughter was okay and would get through it, because there are some tough days. There's some really lovely walks. So they woke us up at 1 a.m. So you're away at 2, you're trekking up the mountain at 2 a.m. in the pitch black, and everyone's got head torches and it's rugged going, and you trek 6 hours up and watch the sunrise from the top of the mountain. Yeah, that was the best day. It was hard work, but it was very, very rewarding at the top. Yeah, my daughter was 12 at the time, so I had to get special permission for her to go. Yeah, it was awesome. We just went out there and we had a great time. It was fantastic. One of the things Ronald McDonald House did really well was they gave letters to all of us every day that we opened, and it was like a letter from a sick child saying thanks for doing this, and my daughter and I would have a bit of a tear, and we did little videos of us opening them every day just to send to people and say, here we are, day one, and we're going to open our card today. And, it was so-and-so, I've been in the house for 300 nights and, appreciate it. And tough. Yeah, tough. You think you're doing it hard, but, it's nothing. Between the 12 of us, we raised $80,000. Amazing. People just get behind you. It's, we did the hero pages on Facebook and all those things, and Charlotte got out there at her school and gave a little talk and said, I'm doing this thing, and if anyone can donate them $10, or we had an ex-Olympic gold medalist in our group. We had an amazing female attorney in Melbourne who has some great stories, and just the people you meet is incredible. So we were all there with the same charity, so we already had a common theme, and some people had children that had been through or passed away, or some pretty full-on stuff. Yeah, it was those moments where you're sitting around and having a chat that were quite emotional. And the walk was really positive, and learning about a bit of the area as well along the way, because the guides obviously know the place backwards. It's like any adventure, it's a bit nerve-wracking at the start, and then you meet the people and you get to know them over the first couple of days, and it's a wonderful experience. And that Mount Sonder day up that mountain was spectacular. Some highlights, things you'll never forget. Having 4 children, to get a week away with any of them one-on-one is precious. Especially doing a challenge that she'd worked hard for and trained for and raised money for, and was great. Yeah, it was really emotional. It was good.